U2 goes on stage these days, he introduces himself to the audience as an Irish rock star, and you immediately know exactly who he is and where he's from. So I'm not a rock star, but I am an Irish, and sometimes I call myself an Irish internet entrepreneur, that I'm involved in several different internet businesses, of which Realex is the primary concern that I have, and the primary business on which I focus. And I was very keen to when Paul put the challenge to me to come and to talk about the challenges that we face as an organisation in trying to internationalise our business. You must remember, I guess, the context of where we come from. Ireland is a country the size of Manchester in terms of its people, so you wouldn't go make a business that would operate out of Manchester. So any Irish business that wants to scale always has to look outside of Ireland, because simply the market is such a small place that you cannot scale it there. So there are many, many Irish businesses involved in payment processing, many Irish internet businesses that are constantly looking overseas trying to scale their business. And it's a constant issue. And there are many, many organisations in Ireland involved in trying to generate business overseas for Irish companies. And it becomes an integral part of any Irish business strategy is its internationalisation and how it is going to internationalise. Many of them would often see the trip to the UK as the first expansion of that company, and then from there further into Europe as well. But if for us, and I'm going to be talking to you about the journey from our perspective, so I'm not saying it's the right journey or the right way to do things, but I'll just tell you about basically our experiences and the journey that we've taken and the challenges that we face as we've attempted to internationalise the business. And I guess we kind of thought about it for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, and messed around and didn't actually do it in any structured way. And it was only in the last 2 to 3 years that we really got our act together and worked out a plan as to how we were going to do it. So what I want to share with you is the model that we've used to execute on that strategy over the last two years in particular. And we call it F5. Our strategy F5, and F5 is actually translated into a 28-page book, right, in terms for the organisation itself. And it's about one thing. It's about growth. You want to grow a business, then you need to have a strategy in place. And above all, that strategy has to be, central to the entire organisation, central to everything that you do. In the absence of that strategy, you're going to drift. You're going to go out into the ocean, you're going to row, but you're not going to know where you're going to end up. You don't have the path laid out, you haven't communicated, it's not clear, it's never going to become real. So therefore, we had to take some time aside to say, right, how are we going to truly internationalise this business? But to do so, we're going to have to put a strategy together. And these became what we call the building blocks of growth. We had to, and it sounds a little bit, when you go into this exercise, people will say, you don't need that crap. Like, you don't really need a vision. It's BS. You don't need it. And these values, I don't buy that stuff. It's nonsense, right? Absolute nonsense. I can remember it very well, standing in front of the people from Virgin Atlantic on the day I made the second or third sales pitch to them. And the question that they asked me was, tell me about the culture, tell me about the values within your organisation. Because we know there's many people out there who could do this business, but we want to know the type of people with whom we're going to do this business, and how do they behave. And you suddenly start to see that the bottom two blocks here, the vision and the values of an organisation, in fact, become extremely important when you're trying to reach into new markets, aside from the actual strategy itself, which relates to the product, and then the organisational structure that you've got in place. And these are 4 little Lego bricks, think of them, right, that are necessary. And you can put fancy kind of academic names on it, or you can put just very basic English on it. And you can say, well, why do you have a vision? Well, I have a vision because I want you to be inspired. As somebody within this organisation, I want you to share that vision. If you're saying to me that you're happy as a domestic player and you're happy to operate within your own national market right now, and my vision is that we want to be a highly innovative international business, well, we're not aligned here. Okay? So maybe you're not the right guy to have heading up the business development team because you don't want to travel. So therefore, we need to have a vision, because we need to be able to talk about that vision. And the vision is just setting the bar. It just sets a little bit of aspiration, a little bit of ambition about who it is that you want to be. And you can have that discussion about the vision, and it can take some time. And you can put the statement together, as to what you want to be. And we said we wanted to be a highly innovative payment company, and that word innovation came through very, very strongly in our ambition, was to keep the innovation alive. And that's a very difficult thing to do. As you're scaling, and as your company's getting bigger, and as your product's getting bigger, and as you've got to service thousands of customers, You want to innovate. Hang on, we don't want to do that because we've got to keep the system secure, we've got to keep the system reliable, we've got to keep it working. So there's a bunch of demands over here which say, don't change anything. There's a bunch of people over here saying, we've got to change it all. We've got to highly innovate, we've got to make apps for the iPhone, we've got to get a Facebook thing working, we've got to go on Twitter, we've got to do everything. And so there's a bit of a clash there between those two demands. So you have to find a way within the organisation to release that and to make sure that both become reality, because you can't obviously trade one off against the other exclusively. We decided that we were staying in the payment services business. Again, it sounds like a very silly thing to say, but why? Because that's what we do. We're in the payment, but we're not saying just the online payments business. We're opening up to a broader payment services business, is what we said. And I won't go through them all, but the vision was there, derived by people within the company to try and set out a new way of describing our aspiration as to what this company might be like I used it in a pub style, so I can describe this stupid pub to you, that this is what I hope Realex is going to be like in 3 years' time. These are the words I'm going to use to describe it. And what we then do is you go from there and you derive a series of values. And as I say, I didn't buy this. I walked into this exercise a complete skeptic, and I said, no, this is not going to happen in my company, no way. Because I had worked for a large financial institution for many years where I had seen visions and values implemented and not executed, because certain group within the business would never have actually conformed to the behaviours consistent with the values that we had discussed, but other people would have. So these values were determined not by me. We had a company over from Chicago called CLG, the Continuous Learning Group, who spent a couple of days with the entire company, asking them, the people who ring the customers every day, who talk to the customers every day, the people who cut the code, the people who were out there trying to make the sale, what do you think are the values of this organisation if we're to achieve that vision? What's important to you? And they came up with words like quality, get it into it, security, being rock solid and watertight. They wanted people. We don't want to do jobs, we want to have careers. We want innovation. They said we want to be bright lights. We want customer service, because we will go the extra mile every time. We want to have expertise. We want to know more than anybody else. And that's what they said they wanted to be. They were the values. And we asked them then to determine a whole series of behaviours around those values. And this is a necessary step if you want to jump outside of your country. Because when you go abroad, people will ask about your product, but they'll kind of assume that you know what you're doing in relation to your product. And they'll know that it's working, because you're not going there with no customers, you're going with a reference list, you're going with customers. So they're going to be comparing you to incumbents in that marketplace. And they're going to want to know why you're different. And you can find a difference when it comes to the culture of your organisation, and when it comes to the vision and the values that you've got. Because what they do is they determine behaviours. Now, I didn't like the word behaviours when it came to business at all. My mother used to say I was bad at behaviour, and that your behaviour is bad. And I couldn't get it working within the business context for a long time. And then eventually it clicked with me that the word behaviour, because you might have done a good job, in that meeting, but the way you behaved and the way that some of those behaviours that you demonstrated were not consistent with the values of this company. The manner in which you've just spoken to that customer was not consistent with the customer service value. The way that you've written that email is not consistent with the quality value. And those things matter. They matter big time. Because every interaction with every customer always has to be top class. You can never drop your standards. You can never compromise in that. Always absolute perfection in everything that you do. And you need to make every interaction an absolute pleasure for the customer.